Alright guys, hello and welcome. We're doing Q&A here today at Uamau, Hawaii. I don't think I've ever said the name before, so that's how you pronounce it. Uamau, Hawaii. Or Hawaii, if you want to get really technical about it. I got some really good questions, so let's just get started. Are soy products safe? Are they safe for women to eat? Do they promote the development of breast and other estrogen-dependent cancers? This is a really interesting question, and it's kind of a dynamic answer, both a yes and no kind of answer, because findings have shown up on both sides. On one side, it says, yes, soy is perfectly safe. In fact, it's protective against breast cancer. But then we have this other camp of scientists and researchers saying, oh, no. Soy is dangerous. It causes breast cancer because it has plant estrogens in it, and it raises your estrogen levels. So what's the truth here? We covered this subject extensively in my women's health class last semester that I took with Dr. Pam Popper over at the Wellness Forum Institute for Holistic Health Studies. And what she said, and I trust her beyond a shadow of a doubt because she does her research and she's so thorough, and she showed us the research that found soy, whole soy, such as what would be found in whole soybeans or relatively unprocessed tofu, a lot of miso products, to be protective against breast cancer. Those studies showed that the women who ate the most soy had the most protective effects. Studies coming out of Asia also found that women who ate the most soy when they were younger, when they were growing up in their formative prepubescent and pubescent years, had the most protective effect from consuming the soy products. So that tells us that if you're raising a young girl right now, it would be very good for her future health to feed her soy products. A lot of people talk about the phytoestrogens or the plant estrogens that are in soy foods. Yes, soy contains phytoestrogens, and yes, they can occupy your human estrogen receptor sites. This, however, is not a bad thing. In fact, it's proven to be especially protective in things like breast cancer, which are dependent on estrogen. So the soy phytoestrogens come and occupy those estrogen receptors in the breast cancer tumors, and then your actual estrogen cannot occupy that receptor, and thus the tumor is deprived of its human estrogen that it needs to grow and thrive. Studies have shown that breast cancer patients who consume soy regularly live longer than breast cancer patients who do not consume soy. The other interesting thing about these phytoestrogens is that other foods are much richer than soy in these same phytoestrogens, like flax seeds, whole grain bread. There's a huge list of plant foods that are rich in phytoestrogens. It's not just soy, but nobody's making a big deal about these other foods. And why is that? Well, it's because of soy milk and fake meat. Fake milks and fake meat are scooting real milk and real meat out of the market. Meat and dairy, they're not stupid, so they know how to make controversy and make people question the validity of other options. That's what they're doing. It's what the tobacco industry has done for billions of years. That was a joke. And here's where the other side of it comes in. Then you have these studies that say that, well, no, soy is actually bad for you, promotes the formation of cancer, blah, 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 blah. Those studies came from mostly mice and rat studies where they were fed huge amounts of concentrated, isolated soy protein. And then, as it happened, they developed tumors, they developed some liver problems, which honestly is to be expected and teaches us a very good lesson about isolated nutrients. Okay, they were using isolated soy protein. And so this illustrates a really great point about the difference between whole foods and isolated nutrients. Just like the fructose in a whole piece of fruit is amazing for your body. It's what your body needs. But drinking a can of soda containing high fructose corn syrup is not good for you. Whole soybean, tofu, miso, good for you. Isolated soy protein, not good for you. In fact, Dr. John McDougall did a really interesting lecture about how isolated soy protein can raise your insulin-like growth factor the same amount or more as eating dairy products. And as you may or may not know, IGF-1, or insulin-like growth factor, is very, very positively correlated with the development and growth of cancer. So eat whole plant foods, period. What I recommend, and this is the same recommendation as Dr. Pam Popper, is to enjoy soy foods if they come up in your diet. Don't avoid them, but don't necessarily go out of your way to eat a lot of them. Tofu once a week is not going to kill you. Tofu every day may not be the best idea because eating any food every day is not the best idea, and tofu is pretty high in fat. So, I hope that helps to answer your questions. It's a very complicated, convoluted subject that has been only further convoluted by the meat and dairy industry sponsoring these studies that find that soy is cancerous. All right, next question. Could you please give us some tips on how to sustain a vegan diet long term? Abso-fucking-lutely I can. Okay, so I have been vegan coming on, like 7 years now? That's a long time. How did I do it? Well, I stayed really focused. And my number one tip for staying vegan long term is to never stop learning. You know, you become vegan at first, you watch Earthlings, you watch Cowspiracy, you watch Forks Over Knives, then you're like, I know enough. No, never. You never know enough. And you never stop benefiting from refreshed and renewed and new motivation. Always keep learning. Always keep learning. Always keep learning. Make sure you always have plenty of vegan food around to keep you satisfied, and don't be needlessly or overly restrictive with what you're eating. So this means, like, do I need to be a 100% raw foodist? No. Do I need to be exclusively gluten-free all the time? No. Can I go out to a dinner party and maybe eat something that's like processed and has a little oil in it? Yeah, sure. Go for it. That way you can continue to eat a whole foods, plant-based, vegan, high carbohydrate diet consistently over the long term without feeling like you're deprived or without feeling really stressed out when you go out in social situations or when you find yourself stranded and you suddenly need to eat lunch and you're like, oh my god, but I only eat raw, vegan, gluten-free, oil-free. No. Go, get some vegan sushi. It'll be fine. And surround yourself with other vegan people. If you can't do that physically, do it on social media. I go on Facebook and all I see are vegan recipes and animal rights information and other vegans who are totally fucking kicking ass. And that's my normal. I go on Instagram and that's all I see is beautiful pictures of inspiring, delicious vegan food. That's all I see. So I'm not seeing all of these other foods that I would potentially be tempted by, and this makes it really helpful to get to the point where you just stop thinking of meat, dairy, and eggs as food. And this segues into the next question. How do you save money on a vegan diet? Know the growers, know the wholesalers, buy in bulk, and always be telling people that you're looking for a good deal. When I used to live in the city, I would go around to the different stores, I would introduce myself to the produce managers. I'd say, hi, I'm Lily, I'm fucking crazy. I eat a lot of bananas and fruit, so if you ever have several boxes of bananas that are ripe at the same time and you need to get rid of them, call me, here's my card. And I would get calls. Go find wholesalers in your area. When I lived in North Carolina, we'd go to the farmer's market where they also had a bunch of wholesalers that were in the back. And I would go over there and I'd get these massive, like, 35-pound watermelons for $3, and they'd give me all the free mangoes I could possibly eat that were perfectly ripe, just because they didn't have time to ship them before they'd go bad. They called me the crazy fruit devil in Spanish. I can't remember what it was. I could translate it, but I'm not going to. They really got a kick out of me. They cut me some really great deals. I had fun with those guys, and they kept me really well fed. Right now, I live in Hawaii, so I get my bulk food from the health food store. I buy a 25-pound bag of rice. They give me 15% off. We get a couple different kinds of beans at a time in bulk. We get a few different kinds of rice at a time in bulk. I get millet in bulk. buckwheat in bulk, just because I know that these are our staple foods that we eat a lot of. We dump those guys into buckets, plastic 5-gallon buckets, because moisture and bugs are a big problem, so the buckets keep all of that out, and they last for months. Also, most of my fruit comes direct from the farmer. I know these guys, but it took me several years to track down reliable people that I could buy regularly from, who I know for sure are organic. But I found them and I know them, and we talk, and I make sure that they're getting a fair price. I ask them regularly, are you sure this is enough? How are you guys doing? How's the farm? What do you need done? And there's a real relationship there. I take care of them, they take care of me. It's a great way to get your food. So how much do you, Levi, and the family spend on food every month? So probably about $600 for all 4 of us. And I don't know, maybe that sounds high for you guys, but we eat a lot of really good organic food. And I've never been great at knowing specifically how much I spend. I'd say about $600 a month. It's Levi and myself through the week, and then we have the girls Friday to Sunday, and that keeps all of us really well fed on really, really high quality, fresh, local food. And food is one of our largest expenses. I believe that food should be our largest expense because it's going directly into our bodies, and it directly affects our health, our well-being, how we feel about ourselves on a daily basis. So it's gotta be good stuff. So doing all that will keep you really well fed, it'll help you save a little bit of money, and it'll keep you on the vegan path. Never stop learning. Never stop learning.